Saturday, January 2nd, 2016. Derek Davis here with Rob Vino, sportsbettingtoday.us and Rob Vino Sports. Rob, 4 games on the college football board today. Let's go here with game 277, 278, TCU and Oregon, 6:45 p.m. Eastern kickoff from San Antonio, Texas, in the Alamo Bowl. A game played in the dome here. Rob, weather will not be a factor, of course, in the Alamo Dome. TCU and Oregon opened as a pick at a total of 75. Rob, that total has stayed the same as 75, yet Oregon is now a 6.5-point favorite. The big reason, Trevor Boykin being suspended for some good old-fashioned knuckleheadedness, sneaking out of the hotel room and hitting the bars, and he will not be playing today. That is obviously substantial for the Horned Frogs. They need everything they can get offensively to keep up with Oregon in this one, Rob. And injury-wise, the Horned Frogs already very thin on offense. They're missing 4 wide receivers. They've got 4 wide receivers out for the season, including their stud, Josh Doxson. Now you take out Trevor Boykin. So it's not hard to see where those 6 points come from as far as the line move. Although it's kind of unusual to see it move that much. I know James Winston last year, when it was announced he was out, the line moved tremendously in that one. But typically you don't see that much of a movement. But although when it comes in late like this, probably better safe than sorry as far as the odds makers are concerned. Oregon, injury-wise, not much to mention here. They have had some staff changes, Rob, there at Oregon on offense. Not sure what effect that will have. Probably not much. But Rob, a really tough one to handicap here when one team is really clearly not at full strength. Unlike Baylor, TCU didn't have the time to prepare for someone else besides Boykin. It was pretty much a given he was going to start, listed as probable for the game. So going to have to kind of bootstrap it here for the Horned Frogs. Tough game to play.
What an absolute crazy circumstance for TCU in this game, Derek, the week of the bowl game, to have your leader, your quarterback, a future NFL quarterback, potential very early round quarterback, Trevon Boykin, and to sneak out after bed check and get arrested for assaulting a police officer. It's a felony charge. Obviously, TCU was taken by surprise on this one. However, unlike Baylor, which you mentioned in your analysis, TCU has full-time quarterbacks behind Trevon Boykin that they can lean on, and quarterbacks that have played. They're going to go to Bram Kohlhausen. He's played 5 games so far this year. Remember, Boykin was hurt for a couple of games this year, and Kohlhausen had to come in and relieve him. So there's playing experience there. He's certainly not Trevon Boykin, cannot make the plays with his legs that Boykin can. But as far as running the offense from a pass efficiency standpoint, and unlike Baylor, it's not a converted wide receiver playing quarterback, so there doesn't need to be a significant switch in offensive systems. Kohlhausen's run it. He's thrown the ball to these receivers. He's handed off to these running backs. He's played behind this offensive line. So it won't be brand new for TCU here. And I think that's why the total, it had gone up to 78.5 after the news of Boykin being arrested. It came down to 75. Went down even lower. I think it went to 73 and has now come back to 75. So I think the money out there realizing that TCU's done this before, and maybe it's not as harsh of a circumstance at quarterback as it may be if you were inserting a redshirt or true freshman who had not taken a snap all season long. For Kohlhausen this year, for those who haven't followed TCU, he's 27 of 43, 63% completions, or near 63% completions. And his quarterback rating, if you want to use somewhat of a gauge, Boykins was 161.5 this season, and for Kohlhausen, 153.3. So not a huge separation there. Now, not working with Josh Doxson obviously hurts. He is the best wide receiver on the team, and some would think he's potentially the best wide receiver in the country. That's arguable, but still he's up there in your top five. However, much like any offense of this air raid style, there are guys behind him. And when you have the trio of Corey Listenby, Turpin, and Nixon, those three guys right there, those three receivers, Listenby, Turpin, and Nixon, combined this season to catch 107 passes. It's a lot of passes. They've caught 1,500 yards worth of receptions, and they've also got 14 touchdowns, which is the equivalent of Josh Doxson and his 14 touchdowns. There's experience there, a lot of guys. So at TCU, they may lean on the running game a little bit more here than usual with Boykin. Aaron Green, certainly a capable runner, 1,171 yards. They've got weapons still, and that's why the total hasn't been drastically bet down. However, you talked about it. To keep up with Oregon, it takes a little more than that, in my estimation. Oregon, the last 3-4 weeks of the season, has been an offensive juggernaut, and for them, health was key. And once they got all their pieces back in place, once Vernon Adams got over the broken index finger, this team took off. Their wide receiving core was not healthy for a majority of the year, but now when you combine Braylon Anderson, Darren Carrington, Dwayne Stanford, Charles Nelson, all four of these guys together, it's one explosion after the other. Very difficult for a challenged TCU defense to keep up with. Add to that Royce Freeman at running back, who also doubles as an extremely good pass receiver. 24 catches for Freeman on the season. Vernon Adams can make plays with his legs. To me, it's just an overwhelming task for TCU. What comes into question here is the movement of the line. You alluded to it. TCU was a 1-point favorite before it was announced that Boykin would not play in this game. The turnaround to go to -7 is an 8-point switch based on a quarterback. It sounds like a lot. However, when you have a game where you project your winning team to be, in all likelihood, in the high 40s, potentially 50 for Oregon here against this TCU defense, the number 7 gets a little bit smaller. TCU is going to really, really have to score a bunch. And, it's very possible TCU could find their way to 38 points behind Kohlhausen in this game and still not cover. So I think, in some places we see now, Derek, a move down to 6.5, a tick under 7. I think I would be comfortable laying 7 anyway, but if you can lay 6.5 and get under the key of 7, that's probably a good way to go here. Oregon's defense has not been good. Let's make that clear too. TCU's got weaponry that can strike against Oregon. What Oregon's defense does have in its favor is they've been very, very good at sacking the quarterback the last half of the season, and Kohlhausen doesn't have the mobility that Boykin had. The pass rush probably would not have been an issue with Boykin at quarterback, but with Kohlhausen, I think the pass rush does come into play here for Oregon. I think they'll get to Kohlhausen a couple of times. Like I say, I'd be comfortable laying 7 with Oregon. I'm fine with that. I'd be more comfortable laying the 6.5. The 75, you've got Oregon TCU. I don't know how you could play it under, even with a backup quarterback. It might be in a real good place right now when you start thinking of game scores that could fall on 75. You think of 41-34 right away, seems to be the most common. 48-27 would be common as well. So those are up there. So 75 is a lot to get. But if I had to lean, I'd probably lean towards it making it slightly over that number. Like Oregon, though, in this game.